Welcome to Constructors in Object-Oriented Programming. In this very short video, I will be going through how to create constructors and what are the reasons that we should create constructors. Okay, look at this small class. Class name is student. So in this class, we can see 4 variables. Student ID, name, first name and last name. And you can see their type, they are integer. Student ID is an integer, name is string, first name is string, last name is string. And in this main method, I have initialized, or I have created a student object name S1. Now, as soon as I created this student object S1, these parameters are not defined. So even though there is a S1 object, that object is empty. So now I can assign values to those variables. I can say the student is student ID S1, first name is Vignesh, so on and so on. But you will see I can create a student without student ID. Now, business point of view, what do you think? So if you want to enforce a rule that whenever you create an object or student, you have to have a student ID. When you are constructing a student object, you need to have a student ID. If you want to enforce such a rule, how are you going to do that? So that is where constructors are helpful. So here what we can do is we can say public student, and I can say integer student ID and student ID is, let's say, in order to, I can say SID. Now with that, what I am doing, I'm saying I'm enforcing a rule. When you are creating a student ID, it should have a, you should pass a value. Now you can see you get an error here, that is, this is empty. Now you can't create object without a ID. So you have to pass that value, sorry. You have to pass that value here. Now you can see I'm enforcing a rule. When you are creating a student ID, student object, you have to have a student ID. So that is where constructors are handy. Now you can't create a student without student ID. Now let's complicate the situation. There can be another situation, either it can be student ID or ID number. Student national ID number. So then what we can do is we can create another variable, let's say national ID number, and then I can create another constructor string parameter t. What I'm doing here is, So I can create another student object, S2. I'm initializing from, sorry, student object, but this has to have a value, some ID number. So now what will happen here? So I can create a assign value to those that object. Right. Now what happens when you create student with a numerical value, it will call this constructor. And then it will, in this constructor, parameter that you are passing, which is 150 here, will be assigned to this variable. In the second situation, where you are passing a string, so it will identify this as this constructor because this has a string data type, and then it will assign national ID. So if you look at student S1, you have student ID and the first name. Student S2, you have the national ID and the first name. So you can see that is where the constructors are coming handy. Just to summarize what is constructors are. So it's a special method in a class, right? It's a special method in a class, and importantly, it should have the same name as class. Now in a method, you can have different names, but for a constructor, you have to have the same name as the class. And constructor there is no return values. Constructor, there can be inputs, parameters, but there is no output or no return values for the constructors. So constructor is called automatically when an object is created. Then there are different types of constructors, which is the default constructor. By default, constructor will not have any parameters, and then we will have parameterized constructors where it accepts the arguments and set values. Like we saw for student ID, you are passing the student ID, and that ID number, integer number, will be assigned to the variable. So when it comes to object creation, when the objects are created, constructor will be called, and from that it will be initialized. So key points are constructor will initialize the object. It will invoke at the time of object creation. That means the constructor will be executed at the time of object creation. There are default and parameterized over the parameterized the constructors can be overloaded, which we will discuss in a separate the lecture that is on when we are discussing method overloading. Thank you very much. Hope this is helpful.